Hey folks, it's your humble narrator Phil Dawson, and I am happy to announce we have a title sponsor. That's right, it's Gamers Dreamland. Now, what is Gamers Dreamland? It is a one-stop shop for a premium Magic card buying experience. Getting Magic singles, quality stuff, where if you're looking to round out your deck, this is where you can now go first. New, used, classics, everything you are looking for that you can have confidence in buying and purchasing from an online retailer. A TCG Gold seller, highly rated, and just so happens to be a fan of the podcast. And this is where it gets good because the way this works, it's simple. You buy your singles there, your needs for cards from Gamers Dreamland, and that supports the podcast. It could not be easier. So now we have a way for everyone who listens and plays Magic to support the show, and that's thanks to Gamers Dreamland. It couldn't be easier. All you do, go to the site, click what you want, get it in no time at all. And this goes for everyone building your deck. Don't buy the whole deck. Get the singles from Gamer Dreamland. And collectors, you never know what you may find to get that special card you've been looking for. Plus, as an added bonus for you to just check it out, head to gamersdreamland.com. You can find the link also in the show notes, and using the links there, you will automatically get 10% off your order. See, it couldn't be easier, and it could be happier that we have an easy way to support the podcast just by buying Magic cards. So take a look, gamersdreamland.com, browse around, help support the show, support your deck builds. Gamersdreamland.com, a proud sponsor, title sponsor of the Magic the Gathering unofficial audiobooks podcast. Gamersdreamland.com, Gamers Dreamland, your online LGS. Part 2, The Nation. Thran Phyrexian War Day 2. Battle of the Null Sphere. From high above cloudy folds of mountain, the Null Sphere seemed a giant pearl. My pearl, Yawgmoth whispered to himself. He stared down from a prow as war caravel, wind buffeted him. My glorious creation. The Null Sphere was not truly Yawgmoth's creation. It was Glacian's, but Glacian and all his creations now belonged to Yawgmoth. The Lord of Phyrexia had climbed through the man's mind and knew everything. He understood the true and terrible power of the Null Sphere. Glacian could have used it to take control of the Empire, but for his virtue, Yawgmoth had no such impediment. He reached out his hand, imagining the Null Sphere in his grasp. It was a vast metallic orb larger than Halcyon itself. The lower half of the sphere rested within a deep impact crater. Its contour perfectly matched the rocky bowl beneath it. Huge pylons anchored the orb in the crater. The upper half of the sphere formed a gleaming dome of steel among tumbling clouds. No solid globe, the Null Sphere was a shell of causeways and grids around a gigantic emptiness. For all its vastness, the structure was very light. For all its lightness, the structure was very strong. Such was the wonder of Glacian's design. The real wonder, though, was the purpose of all this parabolic metal. The upper hemisphere of the device was a gigantic dish aimed down into the rock. It gathered and focused the massive mana energies of the mountain. The lower hemisphere was a dish aimed skyward to harness the quintessential energies of the heavens. The orb was also infinitely divisible into vertical dishes, allowing it to pinpoint every second and dwarf second of arc throughout the continent. In this way, the Null Sphere was an enormous antenna, drawing power from the land and channeling it in to monitor and control every artifact creature in the Thran Empire. Only Yawgmoth's own armies were beyond its reach, thanks to Glacian's secret knowledge. Yawgmoth motioned over his shoulder, summoning one of his officers. A Phyrexian commander arrived. Her flesh was as gray and sinewy as steel cables. She wore an armored vest, chitinous leggings, and dagger-tipped boots. The horns that jutted up along her jaw formed a set of external fangs in a perpetual grin. Yawgmoth pointed over the rail toward the main road through the mountains. Sphere's garrison is stationed there beneath the rocky shelf. 50 warriors, enough to hold that bottleneck against a large conventional assault. We'll land on the staging ground this side of the bottleneck. I expect you and your strike force to eat through the Thran soldiers in a matter of moments. Yes, great Lord Yawgmoth, she answered, bowing her head. Not a single Thran soldier is to reach the sphere. I want only artificers within. You may join the team in the sphere only after every Thran soldier is dead. Yes, great Lord. With a wave of his hand, Yawgmoth summoned the Hellside commander. The man approached, gleaming in silver power armor. Yawgmoth's eyes remained trained on the sphere. Once the artificers are secured, usher them, alive, to the control core. Keep them hostage there until I come. Yes, my lord, the Hellside commander barked. I myself will lead the implosion device team. Prepare your squad. At last, Yawgmoth looked away from the sphere. He turned his lightless eyes on the crew. Battle stations, everyone. The Hellsite and Phyrexian commanders each gave a final bow before departing for their troops. Yawgmoth, meanwhile, strode across the deck to the rappelling gear. His team awaited. Some were gray-fleshed Phyrexians, some silver-garbed Hellsites. All were powerful climbers, intent and deadly. Atop their climbing harnesses, they had strapped belts from which dangled large power stones and implosion devices. Yawgmoth fastened harness and belt in place. From a hatch by the gunwale, he retrieved a bundled mechanism. It was a stone charger, an experimental and powerful explosive device. Cradling it in with maternal gentility, he gazed over the rail. The null sphere was enormous now. It filled the world below. The war caravel executed a long arc, curving downward. The ship's shadow seemed small on the endless gridwork. The ship banked, its dive deepened, the ground soared up. Yawgmoth gripped the rail and watched avidly. Steel grids slid away. The long horizon of the sphere fell to stern. Crossing the crater's ragged lip, the ship soared out along the garrison road, narrow between stone outcrops. Beyond lay a staging ground and a cliff wall. The garrison crouched there. Carved from living rock and fortified by rubble walls, the outpost was imposing. Thran soldiers along the garrison wall sounded an alert. They withdrew behind thick ramparts of stone. To either side of the staging ground, a pair of antiquated bombards pivoted in their embrasures. Target those bombards, Yawgmoth shouted. Fire! Twin beams of red radiation surged out from the ray cannons of the war caravel. They roared across the staging ground. Air boiled in their wake. One bolt smashed into the right-hand bombard. Gunner's flesh melted from their bones. Rocks sloughed. The bombard liquefied like a candle. The stones in it had been firing shot outward in a hail of lava. Fires woke on anything that would burn. The other ray cannon bolt went wide, crashed like a battering ram against the wall of the garrison. The rampart shuddered, caved. A brittle sound came, cracking glass, and the smell of lightning. Stone shattered into white-hot sand and sloughed away. The cave space beyond was dark. Eyes glared out in terror. A cheer rose from the war caravel, though Yawgmoth did not join in. One bombard remained, gave a whistling sound, 1,000 rocks shrieking up its barrel, and barked. A storm of stone belched outward, followed by white smoke. Antiquated, yes, but deadly all the same. The ship wheeled. It was no good. Ray cannons fired at the vaulting stone. It was no good. Rocks smashed the hull of the war caravel. The ship bounded and listed as if staved by a whale. Gun walls a foot thick blasted open. Stone raked across the engine. Steam hissed. Violent whine came from countless cracks in its fuselage. The caravel lurched, plummeting, struggled to stay aloft. The scream of the engine told what was to come. There were only moments. Gunners, blast that bombard, Yawgmoth shouted. Repelling crews, to the lifeboats. The rest of you, abandon ship. The Phyrexian commander and her guards leaped as if they were spiders over the sagging rail. The ship's keel smacked ground as they sprinted for cover. Swiftly, they scuttled across the staging ground, heading toward the breached wall and the Thran soldiers holed up within. The Hellside commander and his troops drawn for the listing hall. They turned their backs on the garrison, rushing instead for the null sphere. Yawgmoth, meanwhile, loaded his team into a pair of aerial lifeboats on the high side of the keeling ship. In moments, the craft were full, 10 crew in each. Yawgmoth stood at the prow of the first boat. He had gingerly placed the stone charger within the hold. Once it was secure, he was anything but ginger. He hacked through the bowline. The lifeboat's engine purred to life. It nosed away from the caravel. Companionship followed. A swarm of stone tore the air over their heads. Yawgmoth hissed, glaring at the bombard as though his ire could destroy it. The final blast jagged from the caravel's sideways ray cannon. It surged across the staging ground and smashed into the bombard. The gun erupted in fire and lava. It shattered, gunners burning to nothing. The embrasure evaporated. The blast continued on, ripping a second hole in the garrison wall. Yawgmoth's voice joined the cheer of his troops. He glanced toward the ray cannon and smiled at the gunner. She began to wave back. The caravel's core went critical. The woman disappeared in a sun-bright explosion that engulfed the whole ship. Coronas of flame leaped up from the inferno. They looped the rising lifeboats, firing arms reaching to snatch them from the sky. "Full aloft!" Yawgmoth commanded, standing in the prow. With the shriek of overhot engines, the vessels launched out the fireball. They dragged long fingers of flame and smoked as they vaulted above the garrison and stabbed out toward the sphere. "Beautiful," Yawgmoth murmured appreciatively. Most of the caravel had been consumed in the initial blast. Its fiery skeleton settled. Beyond it, the garrison boiled. Smoke poured out above. Bodies poured out below. Beautiful. The initial attack shattered the main lamps. The garrison was plunged into darkness. As if to compensate, new windows and doors were blown through the wall. Daylight and firelight flooded in. 8 Thran soldiers were pulverized by shrapnel. The rest staggered into the weird glow and beheld a horrific sight. A war caravel? A Halcite war caravel? How could Yawgmoth spare a caravel to make war on a remote artificer outpost? More fire surged from the caravel's guns. It pounded the garrison wall like hammers on a war drum. Soldiers stared a moment longer in loose-kneed disbelief. Rock shards whipped about them. Sand sifted down from the cracking ceiling. Even these assaults did not penetrate the soldiers' malaise. A Thran bombard barked, vomited smoke. The white stuff formed a momentary curtain in the air before being torn away by an angry wind. A crippled caravel appeared beyond. A vast hole had been punched in the ship's side. Feverish light came from its engine. The caravel listed sloppily. Thran soldiers roared in hope. Yes, hope. Yawgmoth could be brought down. His ship was already doomed. The malaise was broken. Soldiers rushed to crossbow racks and snatched up the deadly things. Power stones embedded in the handles assisted with loading, aiming, and firing. One of those corals could pierce a tree. Scrambling to the breach in the wall, soldiers knelt, trained bows, and fired. Shafts bolted across the staging ground. They would have hailed down upon the deck of the war caravel had it not slipped that moment from the air and crashed to the ground. Quarrels were needless. These Phyrexians would fold up like paper. One bombard blast had destroyed them all. They were fleeing their ship. Thran soldiers laughed angrily. Not fleeing. These Phyrexians, they were advancing. 20-some dark shapes. They seemed like giant spiders, so quick, so craven. More quarrels bounded free. They soared past dodging Phyrexians. Damn, they were agile. What was that on their shoulders? Armor? Spikes? Horns? What kind of helmets were those? They seemed almost made of bone and skin. Well, not helmets. Heads. What were these monsters? "Fire!" the garrison commander shouted. His words broke through a new hesitation. "Fire!" Bolts tore across the staging ground. One struck a Phyrexian in the gut. The metal tore straight through him. The gray-muscled warrior did not fall. Did not even slow. He came on. They looked even more like giant spiders as they approached. Inhuman skulls, sagittal crests, horns, fangs, cords of gray muscle. Yes, these were monsters, not men. The Phyrexians breached the garrison outpost. They did not fight with swords. They needed no weapons. They were the weapons. Claws, teeth, horns, stingers, poison sacks. Thran died like meat in a grinder. The bunker was slick with their dismembered bodies. There was no knowing what part belonged to whom. Phyrexians turned them all into bits of flesh on the killing floor. They exulted in their work. It was clear that their ebullient laughter and their fangy grins. Spider-like, Phyrexians slid on silken cords down around the null sphere. Yawgmoth and his repelling corps had landed atop the vast orb. They had spread from the pole outward, their positions separated exactly by 18 degrees of arc. Once the slope required it, they had attached lines and repelled down. In mere minutes, each had reached their equator of the sphere. Here they would complete their first task. Bracing his feet against a girder, Yawgmoth reached to his belt, where implosion devices and large power stones dangled. Cupping one of the gleaming crystals, he lifted it from its sheath and held it up before his face. The stone glowed with inner might. Its mirrored facets were windows into perfect power. When Glacian looks at these stones, he sees machines, Yawgmoth mused to himself. When Rebecca looks at them, she sees temples in the sky. When I look at them, I see a world made mine. With slow reverence, he pressed the stone against the massive girder where he stood. Enchanted crystal touched rusting steel and affixed itself. No mortal could have pulled it free, not even Yawgmoth, not even a god. Moving in either direction along the sphere's equator, he set 8 more stones. It was a simple thing to drop downward into the crater. He and his team would place their implosion devices on the support pylons there before joining the others in the control core. As he slid downward on the web-like cord, Yawgmoth smiled appreciatively. From a distance, the null sphere seemed a pearl. Up close, it was more like his beloved Phyrexia. We demand to know what is happening, the lead artificer said. Young and blonde, she was the only one with the courage to speak. The rest cowered in the control core, half hiding themselves among crystal arrays, consoles, and speaking tubes. The Hellsite warriors who had brought them here had hurt none of them. Yet, neither had the artificers answered any of the questions put to them. Gradually, their leader had gone from compliance to defiance. She said, "Yawgmoth has no right." "Yawgmoth has every right," interrupted a new voice. A towering man strode in, past cascades of wire. His approach on the mile-long causeway had been utterly silent, as though he were a stalking wolf. He brought a chill presence to the chamber. Even those who did not know this man knew of him, knew who he must be. Yawgmoth smiled humorously at them all. "I have taken the null sphere. It is mine." Though she had winced away from the infamous Phyrexian horde, the lead artificer quickly rallied. "Perhaps you've taken it, but you cannot hold it. The Empire will march an army here within a week." "The sphere will not be here within a week," Yawgmoth said. A question formed on her lips, but never emerged. A profound rumble came from below. Multiple explosions. The sound was amplified by the crater. Destructive force rattled through every beam and spar of the sphere. The woman's eyes stood wide beneath blonde brows. "You're destroying it? You're destroying the sphere?" "No," Yawgmoth said with a smile. "No. I am taking it." Words were followed by the unmistakable rush of upward motion. The null sphere lifted with slow magnificence from its crater, borne heavenward, grip of a power stone equator. The orb was beautiful, caught in the evening light. It was a shame no one, neither Thran nor Phyrexian, survived the garrison battle. Someone should have witnessed that moment. Someone should have seen the null sphere rise. New moon, Dominaira.